I am excited to be back making content for DLF after a mini break with a move and a promotion at work. Let's get back to it. I want to talk about risers, fallers in the month of June over on KeepTradeCut, just to get a pulse for how the community is reacting to rookie hype, trades, free agent additions, etc. I think it's a good idea to understand not only how do you react to something, but how is the overall community or the dynasty landscape reacting? Because that gives you windows to buy low, sell high, etc. So let's just jump right in. Starting with the biggest riser over the last 30 days, it is none other than Darren Waller, which makes sense, right? If you have not heard, the Dolphins traded for Darren Waller while he was retired after trading away Jonnu Smith to the Steelers, which we will talk about the fallout of that, towards the end of this video. But Darren Waller obviously going from zero to becoming semi-relevant, at least in the fantasy landscape, because look, that Dolphins offense just produced a top 5 tight end. Now, is that what I expect of Darren Waller? Absolutely not. Not even a little bit. Maybe he will have top 5 weeks or 1 or 2, but Darren Waller has not been a relevant tight end, I'd say, since 2021. He has not averaged over 10 points per game since 2021. So if you got him for free, great. I'm not going out of my way to trade for Darren Waller, and I don't think anybody should be doing that either. The second biggest riser is none other than Jordan Watkins, the rookie 4th-round wide receiver for the San Francisco 49ers. Really, this is just on the back of camp reports saying he looked good, not in pads amongst other rookies, a 6th-round wide receiver and an undrafted free agent. So I think the bar is low for him to look good amongst that talent. What I will say for Jordan Watkins is he is an injury away right now from having a role in week 1. If Jennings or Parasol go down, he's the most likely next bet, with Brandon Ayuk not expected to be fully healthy to start the year. So there is something there, and maybe that makes him worth a taxi squad spot or an end of bench spot. But really, you're kind of handcuffing a wide receiver, which is always tough, especially if you have short rosters in Dynasty. And sticking with the rookie wide receiver theme, Efton Chism, it's the 3rd highest riser in the month of June. And if you're sitting here thinking, who the hell is that? You are not alone. I promise you. He is an undrafted rookie wide receiver on the New England Patriots, 5'10", white guy. And that probably makes you think, okay, yes, that makes sense. Like, that is the mold for the Patriots of old, right? The Wes Welker, the Julian Edelman, etc. Really, it stops there. But Efton Chism, I don't think, is those guys. I don't think he's either of them. So, look, there's 12 wide receivers in this wide receiver room. Burning a roster spot on him right now, I think, feels a little silly. He's not somebody I'm going to go and chase and even add to the taxi squad spot, right? I'd rather take Jordan Watkins over him. Obviously Watkins is less available, but you get the point. Much more needs to shake out before he becomes even relevant in Dynasty, even in the deepest of leagues. So if you're one of the guys that have gone out, so if you're one of the folks that have gone out and added him, more power to you. I will not be with you on that journey until maybe August or September, when I know he's even going to make the roster. Now, getting away from the rookie wide receivers, J.K. Dobbins naturally falls on this list after landing with the Broncos as well. So what does that mean for Dobbins moving forward? Is he relevant in 2025? And the short answer is yes. He has to be, right? The news around him right now is saying he will be, or at least get a chance to be, the 3rd down running back in this offense. And if we've watched or learned anything about Sean Payton, the 3rd down running back role obviously has a tremendous amount of value. And look, the best bet is RJ Harvey in this backfield. Still, he is going to be the lead back, for lack of a better phrase there. He's going to be the 1A. But Dobbins in that 3rd down role makes sense, right? The veteran running back is likely going to be a better pass protector than Harvey is as a rookie. And that's not even a knock on Harvey. It's just difficult to be a good pass protector as a rookie running back. So maybe they trust Dobbins more there. And if that's the case, he brings some standalone flex value, and then obviously becomes a high-profile, high-value handcuff should anything happen to Harvey, or if, Dobbins even wins the job outright to start the year, which would be incredibly annoying for fantasy purposes, but necessarily off the table. So Dobbins, obviously rostered basically everywhere, just becomes a lot more impressive of a handcuff hold, than he was a month and a half ago. And the last riser in this month, Kalel Mullings, and really this is just centered on the back of him being healthy. He was drafted knowing, he was undergoing core surgery this offseason, and he was limited in camp. So that's great. Like, that's what you want to see at that point in June. They're going to bring him along slowly. Personally, I'm not, losing my mind to go out and add a day 3, 6th round running back that is firmly behind Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears. But if I'm making the bet on him or Efton Chism or Jordan Watkins, two other rookies we talked about, I'm going to make the bet on Mullings just because I'm going to chase a day 3 running back over the day 3 wide receivers or undrafted wide receivers, even for that matter. And that just comes down to strategy. And that's how you want to, approach your roster. I think an end of bench spot is better for Mullings rather than a taxi squad spot, which I'd rather burn on a wide receiver, just because I don't want to bring a guy off of my taxi squad if he lucks into a role. So just depending how you utilize and what positions you have available, that becomes an interesting piece of dynasty strategy. Now, getting to the fallers, I'm just going to kind of do these out of order because I think 3 of them need to be lumped together. And that's going to be Pat Freiermuth, Jonnu Smith, who we already touched on a little bit, and then Mason Rudolph, because God bless the Steelers for doing something this month. I think that made this section a little bit more interesting, right? Let's start with Mason Rudolph because obviously Aaron Rodgers signs in Pittsburgh. Mason Rudolph is not the starter, thank God. And realistically, this affects maybe like the 10 people that were holding out hope on Mason Rudolph being the guy in Pittsburgh or getting a shot to be the guy this offseason. So he goes from starter to backup and isn't relevant for Dynasty at this point unless Rodgers retires or continues that downward trend that we saw last year. And even then, he'd have to be very, very bad for Mason Rudolph to get the start over him. Now, Muth and Jonnu Smith make sense to lump these two together because they directly cannibalize each other to some extent, right? Obviously, Pat Freiermuth goes from the potential number 2 in this offense after George Pickens was traded to the potential number 3 or 2B or C, depending on what else they do at that second wide receiver spot. Muth has not been great for fantasy. He has not been... I don't think he's given us the upside that we had hoped, that he kind of flashed a little bit in year 1. And now you bring in Jonnu Smith coming off of, like we talked about already, right? A tight end 5 finish in points per game last year. He's more explosive. He's more dynamic as a playmaker. But realistically, the big problem for both of them is they are on the same team and their offensive coordinator is Arthur Smith. So naturally, Darnell Washington, the tight end 3, is going to be your best bet for fantasy. I mean, like, it's going to be some nonsense that we have to experience here. Again, Jonnu Smith, I'm more interested in him than Pat Freiermuth because we've seen the explosive playability. That is what I care about for fantasy. Like, if I have to stream a tight end and I am in dire straits between those two, I'm going to take Jonnu Smith. I think most people would agree. And while I think we do not ever get back to tight end 5 levels for Jonnu Smith, the just player himself has clearly shown he can win you a week if necessary, and everything kind of breaks his way. So that's, I think, more than we can say for Pat Freiermuth right now. And our final loser, faller, whatever you want to call it here, is Jace McClellan. And if you're thinking, oh, I haven't heard that name since last year, you're right, and you're not going to hear it again because he got cut.